everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome to the ever unusual and unpredictable Comic Book Vault. Today we're going to do an indie spotlight. We're going to be taking a look at 4 underground independent books that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet on new acquisitions. And the first thing I want to talk about today is Archaeologists of Shadows, Book 2. This is one of my very favorite independent books going on right now. I'm really impressed with it. You get so much bang for your buck, and that's fantastic because all it costs is a buck. As far as I can tell, it's only available right now for digital download. You can go to Amazon. There's a couple other places that it's available as well. It's put out by Septagon Studios, and like I said, each volume is only 99 cents for digital, which is astounding to me because of what this thing looks like. I mean, it's a good length for each volume, but it's this incredibly original and rich and detailed artwork. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, I'll mention once again briefly what this is about and what it looks like. First of all, it's this incredible multimedia thing where it's traditional artwork blended with model work, physical stuff, blended with 3D rendering. I don't exactly know what all goes into it, but there's they give you this this list of all the different things that they've thrown together to make this thing look three-dimensional and they really pop, and the colors are really vibrant, and it's an amazing look, and it reminds me of different things, but it definitely has a look all its own. I've mentioned this before. It has a little bit of the style of of Nine, that movie that Tim Burton produced, and things like that. But it definitely has a style all its own. It's steampunk, and what it's about is this world of machines where human beings are being made to slowly over time become completely 100% robotic life forms. And once they've undergone this change, the government is forcing them to do this because it thinks that the religion they all subscribe to, that their gods, want them to do this, that biomatter is inferior and that technology is the way to go, and that everybody is supposed to be completely converted 100% into mechanical beings. And once they've completely undergone this, they no longer have any sense of individuality left. And the only way that they can continue to be free-thinking creatures is if they don't completely go through this overhaul. And you don't have a single person in this entire book that doesn't have some kind of mechanical components to them, because after all, they wouldn't be able to get away with that. Anytime somebody tries to avoid becoming a mechanical organism, they get shipped to some place where they force them to go through the process really fast. And I guess I'm not entirely sure why they have to do this over time, but the sense I get is that it's harmful to them to do it all at once, that it's a process that you're supposed to do over a particular amount of time. But anyway, this volume has us in this dream world, and it's called Once a Nightmare. And basically the idea is that the alter egos, which are this brother and sister duo who are kind of like together, they kind of are the one from the Matrix. And this actually has a lot of things in common with the Matrix. Not that it's too horribly derivative, but it definitely reminds me of it in places. Basically, there's like a lot of things that have the kinds of religious allegories that this has. There is prophecy, and there's supposed to be these two characters that together are the alter egos, and of course they're basically supposed to be the big peace bringers, the saviors of mankind, and they are on a quest to find their gods. And what's revealed here, not to give too terribly much away, but just to tell you enough so that you'll want to read this. Basically, the idea is there's this theory from a particular translation of their version of the Bible that of their God's Bible, that the gods can be found through the dream world, and this is all about exploring this dream world and them trying to find their gods and going through these various jumping through these various hurdles and going through these trials, and they basically have to overcome their fears and face themselves in various ways, and it's really interesting. And there's a lot of allegory. There's a lot of religious symbolism, and I like to describe this as a techno fable. It's more of, like I said, kind of this philosophical exploration than it is really a really deep character-driven story, and it has that in common with The Matrix. Not to say that I don't have points where I really care about these characters and find them to be fleshed out, but it really is very, very, very allegorical, and that goes really great with this artwork. But there is one character in particular, the leader of the Resistance. His name is Calvin, and not only do I think that his look is the coolest thing in this book, and I really want an action figure of this guy, but there's a moment toward the end where he seems to make this big mistake, and again, I won't reveal what it is, where he's got this great expression where where we see him in profile, where it's like, oh man, I can't believe I did that, and I'm really feeling for that character at that point. So there definitely are beats of emotional resonance, but like I said, the book is primarily really allegorical. And one of the things I was very impressed with this particular volume, as breathtaking as the first book was, this book is even more so, and I'm very impressed with such a fanciful-looking world, where you've got these really beautiful landscapes, natural landscapes, juxtaposed with all of this like emotionless technology, and that was something that I found really impressive in the first book. But then this one, the dream world is even more fanciful and even more imaginative, and there's even more of that juxtaposition. It's absolutely fabulous, and I really think that it's worth your $2 to buy these first two volumes and take a look at it. I'm really, like I said, hoping that when this is all said and done, that we get a good coffee table book of this. And I will definitely pick that up. So anyway, Archaeologists of Shadows, do yourself a favor and pick that up. It's really different. It will, I guarantee you, it will be unlike anything you're reading right now, and you will want to stare at every page for much longer than you're used to staring at a page in a comic book. The second thing I want to talk about today is Silber Bottle Comics. These are put out by Brian John Mitchell, and the physical versions are these little, like, matchbook kinds of comics. They're these tiny comics. I wish I had one to show you. He sent me a PDF of these, so I can show you pictures, but I don't actually have one physically in my hand. But yeah, they're the size of a matchbook. They're $1 a piece, and you can actually spend $15 to get them in a bottle. He says on his website that that's happening for a limited time, and it's still there, so I'm assuming you can still get them that way. And he did a Kickstarter thing over the summer, and I wish I had had a chance to do a video about this while that was still going on, so that I could encourage people to support it. The cool thing is, it met its goal. He wanted $300. He ended up getting over $700, and what he was trying to do with that, and obviously succeeded, is he's wanting to put these little comic books in, these mini comics, in bottles, and then put them in the ocean for people to find sometime down the road. Now, I'm assuming that he has permission for wherever he's dropping these in the ocean to do this, and that he's doing it in as environmentally friendly a way as possible, because on his website he says please note that putting bottles in the ocean is littering. So he's aware of the environmental factors, but I think it's a really, really cool idea, because what he said in his Kickstarter video is that he doesn't care for the fact that with all of the digital comics going on, that people are probably going to start losing an appreciation for physical comic books, and he thought it would be cool to put these things in a bottle so that years down the road, people might pick them up when maybe physical comics aren't as big as they are right now. Now, it's up to each individual person to guess how much digital really is going to take over. But it's still a really cool idea, and what I really enjoyed about these, I read 3 of them, and they're very short reads. They're little. They honestly look almost more like storybooks than they do comic books. There aren't dialogue balloons. It's just a picture and a caption underneath it, but it tells a story. And there are adult stories. They're not really children's stories. But what I really like about them is that since they're being put in bottles, or you can put them in bottles even if you don't get them that way, the idea seems to be that the sea is a theme for a lot of these. Either the sea or the idea of a bottle or something in a bottle. And each of these, the ones I've read anyway, all seem like something that would be very appropriate if you picked them up and read them out of a bottle. And what was really interesting is there were a couple of them in particular that I found myself going, man, if I picked this up, if I found this in a bottle at sea and opened this up and read this, and there wasn't, and I'm assuming that these are going to have the credits of who wrote and drew them. But man, if they didn't have the credits, some of them you'd wonder if they were actually written by the protagonists of the stories, because they're all in first person, and the gimmick of this seems to be like the person who is telling the story put this out to sea for people to find it. And I just think that it's really fascinating. It's a very clever idea. It's really original, and I really enjoyed them. The one I liked the most in particular was the one about the mermaid, and I would recommend that one over the other 2 that I read, where, and again, it's hard to really say very much about these without giving everything away, because they're very short, and they're kind of, they're not necessarily O. Henry endings, but they're kind of about a punchline, and so they're not jokes, but they're kind of, so punchline's not the right word, but they're kind of about that last line. And so this one about the mermaid, it starts out with this man talking about how he found this creature that at first he thought was an angel, and then he discovered that it was mortal but not human, and then thought it was a mermaid, and then starts to find more things out about it, and it's not what he thought it was in the first place. And it's a really eerie comic book, and I really enjoyed it. The art in these comics is really minimalistic, and it works great for the kind of thing that he's putting out. I think it's really fascinating, and I think everybody should really go take a look at it. Just like Archaeologists of Shadows, it's not like anything else you're gonna find in mainstream comic books. The next thing I want to talk about is Innocence. This was sent to me recently in the mail, and this is put out by a little outfit called King's Comics, and it's self-published. It's by Adam King, artwork by I'm going to completely butcher this. Prez Imasla or Daedalus. I don't know how to pronounce that first name. But anyway, this is put out by a guy in the UK, I think, and it's a superhero comic. It's the only one of the 4 today that I'm talking about that is a superhero comic, and it's about this girl who calls herself Innocence, and she was raised by a man who was also a superhero, and he trained her for a while, and then his wife died. And after his wife died, he didn't want her to become a superhero, presumably because his alias as a superhero had something to do with the death of his wife. That's what we can gather from the flashbacks here. And basically, this is kind of about the kind of apathetic attitude of teenagers these days, and how just going through the daily routine of the average boring teenage lifestyle doesn't leave a lot of room for passion, and how this girl, before she becomes a superhero, is, like I said, she's really apathetic. She doesn't feel like she's living, and the only thing that makes her feel alive is going out and fighting the bad guys. I think it's a good commentary on the modern teenager. And so what she so she calls herself Innocence, which I'm hoping that in later issues we get kind of the genesis of that word, because right now, or that name, because right now it seems a little bit like irony for the sake of irony. It's this girl going out brutalizing bad guys, and I mean she's not killing anybody. I don't think that she's really doing anything more than your average superhero would to the bad guys. But still, I mean, she's going out, taking the law into her own hands, and calling herself Innocence. And you got to wonder how innocent she really is. Is she calling herself innocent because she's fighting for other people who are innocent? I kind of wonder about the name. So it's not a bad name, but I'd like a genesis for it. So anyway, there's this mask killer, and she is obviously about to have to go up against this guy, and he looks. His design with his face reminds me a little bit of Bane from Dark Knight Rises, though this had to have been drawn before that. But anyway, there's so she's dealing with that, and by the end of this, and she's kind of got this conflict with her father about whether or not she should be a superhero, and of course he's afraid for her. But she, in my mind, kind of has good reasons to want to do this, and it's very much a nature versus nurture kind of thing. She's got him telling her not to do this, but it's kind of in her nature to, because it was kind of passed down by her father. So I think all of that is really cool. There are some. There's some grammatical issues here and there. It didn't take me out too much. I was able to get through it, but I do think that future issues should probably have an editor. I noticed that there were some missing comments in some glaring places, and some apostrophe s's that were incorrect. So anyway, that's just something to consider down the road. I think the art is great. This is a really good looking black and white comic, and I like to talk about how black and white comics need to look like they were meant to be in black and white, and this one absolutely does. I think he's got a really good artist for this, and ultimately I look forward to checking out the second issue. So thanks for sending that to me, and good job on your comic book there. The last thing I want to talk about is Peter Pan the Vampire, number 2. I did number 1 a few weeks back, and Gary Bratner wrote and drew this, and he meant to send me the second issue and forgot about it, so he sent me this, and he's also sent me issue number 0. And issue 0, I guess he just put out this year to kind of promote the series, and it is pretty much just the first few pages of issue 1, but in black and white. So I won't talk about this because I've already talked about it. The one thing I do want to mention, though, is that I think this book actually looks better in black and white, and would honestly Gary and I have talked about this a little bit through our snail mail correspondence. I mentioned in my last video that I thought that the coloration on this looked a little bit too homemade and a little too colored pencil, and he came back and gave me a good explanation for why that was, and it's a little bit better in the second issue, and he's working on it, and he's working on trying to do more digital coloring for the later issues. I like this in black and white. I think that as underground a comic book as it looks, and there's nothing wrong with that, I'm not saying that it looks too horribly unprofessional, but it's a very underground looking comic book. I think he's got a good art style. I just think that it looks better in black and white. That's just my personal opinion. So anyway, Peter Pan the Vampire number 2 is about Jack Frost, and it brings in some more various characters from different old lores, from fables and fairy tales and things like that. We've got Jack Frost apparently was one of the Lost Boys, and he's a vampire, and he's trying to feed on apparently his feeding on human beings, on enough human beings, is supposed to, as I understand it, get him more normal and allow him to lead more of a normal life. That's his goal. And then we've got a little bit more information about kind of the beginning of slayers in this universe, and there's a spell where if you decide to be a slayer and fight vampires, you automatically get superpowers. And so it's almost as if it's like Buffy, except there's not just one, and you actually get to choose, oh, I want to be a slayer, and then there's a spell that just automatically endows you with superpowers. And the first person who became a Slayer and apparently started this whole thing was Prince Charming. And so Prince Charming was a vampire slayer in this, and I think it's really creative how Bratner is bringing in all these different lores and all these old stories. So basically, Gwen from the first issue gets kidnapped by Jack Frost, and Wendy and Peter Pan and everybody has to try to go rescue her, and that's pretty much what this is about. One thing I really didn't care for in this, and I've complained about this in a lot of other things, and not just independent things, this happens even quite a bit in mainstream stuff, is just phonetic spelling when somebody's got an accent. There's a character in here who gets a lot of dialogue. He's a major character. This guy who I guess is from Hawaii, and he's got this really thick accent, and he kind of starts having a thing for Gwen. And he's a vampire too, and I really like him, but the problem is he's got such a thick accent, and his words are spelled so phonetically that there are a lot of words that he says that I'm not even sure what they're supposed to be, and I have a difficult time following his speech. So anyway, I always say that you can have a character have an accent, and like decide what words he uses based on his accent, but still use regular grammar, and then just allow us to kind of fill in the blanks. Because sometimes in a case like this, it just gets in the way too much, and I found it really difficult to read. That's just my opinion. I don't mean to harp too much on it, but it was pretty glaring for me. I had a difficult time getting through his dialogue, and you know, he had a lot of the dialogue in this. But I do like all this mixed up lore. I think it's got it especially has a really good a really good cliffhanger at the end, and it gets a lot bigger and epic by the end of this with the fight between Peter Pan and Jack Frost. I kind of think it's amusing that Peter Pan is wearing the logo for Bratner's comic book company. I think that's funny. But anyway, so that's Rent and Arb Studios, Peter Pan the Vampire #2, and links for everything where you can get them below. Please do yourself a favor and try some of this stuff out. Try some things that aren't just straight up mainstream. And this is coming from a mainstream guy. I really appreciate, as I've said before, people kind of helping me to get out of my comfort zone, get outside the box a little bit, read some things that aren't just straight up superhero, read some things that aren't just the big two, and I get sent stuff all the time from people, and I'm trying to review as much of it as I can and let other people know about it. If you happen to be working on a comic book or know somebody who is, and you'd like me to read and review it and help get the word out, feel free to send anything you'd like to my P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. I also take digital comics, PDFs. You can send things to me in my email, and just send me a personal message, and I'll give you that information. If you have sent me something before and I've not reviewed it, please drop me a line and let me know about it, and I will be sure to read it and review it on another installment of the Comic Book Vault. I had a period there for a while where I wasn't doing a lot of comic book reviews, and there might have been a few things lost in the shuffle. Very sorry about that. I'm only human, and sometimes I make those kinds of mistakes. So if you did send me something and you're like, well, you're reviewing all this stuff, where's mine? I sent you this months ago. I'm very sorry if that happened. I'm finally back to reviewing comic books all the time, and I really want to make sure that some of these that a lot of these independent books get reviewed so that people know about them. So be sure to drop me a line and let me know about it. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.